Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Harmonious World. My name is Hilary Seabrook. This episode, I am joined by pianist Michele Tozzetti, and he has recorded an album of Niels Wilhelm Gade's piano works. This is a fascinating album of a variety of piano works from the Aquarelle Opus 19 and Aquarelle Opus 57, Sonata in E minor Opus 28, and Phantasiestucke Opus 31. I'm very much looking forward to my conversation with Michele. What you're listening to now is the first movement of the Sonata in E minor, Allegro con fuoco. I hope you enjoy listening to my conversation with Michele. Thank you so much for joining me on Harmonious World. So we're going to talk about this collection of the piano works of Gade.
Yeah.
Tell me why you wanted to put these together. I love the fact that there's such little pieces and you know, I mean, there's the Sonata, obviously, but the Aquarelles are they're just stunning little vignettes, aren't they?
Yeah, well, they are actually the pieces that made me know Gade, you know. I didn't know anything about him because I never studied anything of this composer. And I found this score of the Aquarelle, and I fell in love with them. And I wanted to study also the other pieces that I found of his piano music, and then I proposed it to the Da Vinci Classics, and luckily they agreed to make this recording, and I'm pretty happy about that because I think it's very fascinating music, you know. It's between the traditional romantic music, but also the popular Danish music and Scandinavian music. And I think that listening to it, we can understand better also the further composers, you know, the other Scandinavian composers like Grieg, Sibelius. So I really enjoyed it.
Yes, and I think he's not as well known, is he, as Sibelius? And
no, absolutely not. No.
Yeah. So what was the process? Did you learn all the pieces and then decide you were going to do it, or did you learn them so that you could record them?
I started to study them, to learn them, and while I was in the middle of it, I proposed it. So it was like a mix of the two things, you know. I thought it could be interesting, so I proposed it, and that was like also it helped me more to focus on this project, and yeah, that's how it went.
Technically, how difficult are they? Because some of them, I mean, I actually at this point I want to play the Elegy from the Aquarelle, which is a beautiful little piece. It's only a minute and a half.
Yeah.
hard? Is it?
They are not so difficult from a technical point of view. They can be played also by amateur players. So of course, when you're a professional, you can play them better because they are full of characteristics, you know. But from a technical point of view, they're not so difficult like the Sonata. That's a much more difficult piece. So the Aquarelle usually can be played by anyone.
Yeah, right.
So I hope you will enjoy them also.
Oh yes, yeah. But I do like that the brevity of them is really nice.
Yeah.
They're really accessible, I think. But then you get the depth, I think, of the Sonata.
Yeah, that's a much bigger piece, and of course, it requires first of all energy to be played and focus. You have to be able to focus on it for so many minutes.
Yeah.
But it of course it's a very nice piece also, and it took Gade 15 years to compose it, so it was a pretty long time because he wanted to recreate something as good as the Liszt Sonata. So he probably had too much expectation, but in the end, I think he found out what he wanted to do because it's a really interesting piece.
Yes, definitely. So Gade is very, very Scandinavian, isn't he? There's almost some folk music, very I think the word nationalistic is very much been taken the wrong way now. But
Yeah.
there is something very local about it.
Yeah, first of all, we have to think that at the time, the main centers for classical music were Italy, Germany, France. And so every composer from any nationality had to go to these centers to learn more about classical music. And that's what Gade did also, because he went to Leipzig and there he met Schumann and Mendelssohn, who estimated very much his works. And then he had the chance to make these connections to improve also his composing style. But I think that it's also important the feeling that they had with their own country. Also other composers like Chopin, for example, they studied and worked in these huge centers for classical music, but they always felt like their home was in another place and their traditions were other traditions. And so I think that's why what enriched their music. The connection between the classical music of the time, but also the popular music, and they managed to mix these two things and to match them, and that's what makes this music very interesting, and also what became important for the other composers, because they also had the chance to know different styles of music. Gade was very important for Schumann, for example, and I think that today we have to rediscover this music because it helps us understand better the music of Schumann, Mendelssohn, and other composers.
Definitely, yeah. Well, fantastic. Thank you so much. Tell me a little bit about your background and how you, your English for a start is very, very good.
Thank you.
So tell me what your training, where your training came, and a bit about your journey as a musician.
Well, I started in Rome in some music schools in Rome, and then I graduated in the Conservatory of Rome, Santa Cecilia, and I had the chance to study with some very important pianists in Italy, like Roberto Proceda, who was kind of my mentor, and but I also had the chance to study abroad. For example, I had my Erasmus in Brussels, and maybe that's also where I could work more on my English. And so this is my fourth album, because I already recorded another one about Leonard Bernstein's piano music, and I had other two works on chamber music, and so that's basically it.
Yeah. What's next for you? Are you going to be playing these in the concert hall?
Yeah, well, I already had the chance to give a few concerts to promote this album and this music, and of course I will have more. And I'm already focusing on something else. I don't want to spoil anything, but I'm working on another album about chamber music, and I hope we can talk about it in a few months.
Excellent. Okay, well, definitely keep me posted on that, please.
Of course.
Fantastic. Okay, well, thank you so much for joining me on Harmonious World. It's been great, and I will talk to you soon about the next thing.
Yeah, it was my pleasure. Thank you very much.
Lovely. Thanks, Michele. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining me once more for Harmonious World. I hope you enjoyed listening to my conversation with Michele Tozzetti, and what you're listening to right now is Niels Wilhelm Gade's Phantasiestucke Opus 31, and this is the third movement, Molto Vivace. So thank you for joining me once more for Harmonious World, and please remember that you can subscribe to support the show, and that means you will get a monthly additional podcast episode and a weekly email, which will give you a little more information about what I'm listening to, and also the albums and the books that I'm reviewing on my blog site. Thank you once more for joining me on Harmonious World, and I hope you have a great week. Thank you for listening to the latest episode of Harmonious World. My name is Hilary Seabrook, and it's a great delight to bring this series of discussions with musicians and composers and writers and all sorts of people to you. Obviously, there's no point in having a podcast if people aren't listening, and I'm very grateful to my listeners for doing so. Thanks also to Joe English for composing and performing this new theme tune. So wherever you get your podcast, you can leave a review. You can share this with your friends and family, either as a link or on social media and that sort of thing. I'd be really grateful for that. Don't forget that you can subscribe now. There's a link wherever you get your podcasts. So have a great week, and please remember why I started this, which is just to try and make the world a little more harmonious. Thanks for listening to Harmonious World.